while we're on the synagogue, I must tell you about one little Orthodox Jewish man. You know the kind, a little yarmulke on his head, a racing form in his hand. He came over to see his nephew, and his nephew decided to take him to the synagogue. But instead of taking his Orthodox uncle to the Orthodox synagogue, he took him to the Reform. And what happens, of all days, the rabbi happens to be giving a sermon on the evils of adultery. He says to his nephew, "Tell me, what means adultery?" The nephew was a little embarrassed. He says, "Adultery, uncle, means you shouldn't turn the gas on Saturday." Oh, he says, "That's good. That's good." He listened very attentively to the entire sermon, and when it was finished, he walked over to the rabbi. He says, "Rebbe, the talk on adultery, marvelous, first class, aber wir haben Verdacht, Schickse." The Jewish people are concerned with happiness, with education, and are ambitious in general. They want their children to have good education. They want their children to attain professional status. They are eager that their children attain happiness, and they educate them for this. Although I remember two rabbis were discussing this business of love, marriage, and happiness. One rabbi said to the other one, he says, "To tell you the truth, Rabbi, I think God made a big mistake when he gave man 2 legs." He says, "What are you talking about? A man needs 2 legs. How is he going to get around without legs?" He says, "What does he have to get around for?" He says, "Give me one reason why he doesn't have to get around." I'll give you more than one reason. First of all, in Schul geht nicht. Zum Cheder nimmt man ihn. Zum Chuppe führt man ihn. Zum Käfer trockt man ihn. Und zu a Schickse kriegt er. The Jewish people, too, are very unified. You know, someone has said, the Jews are not a race, they're a people. It is because no matter where you may go in the world, you will know when you've met a Jewish person, there is a psychology, a contact that is very uniform throughout the world. They take a very dim view of intermarriage. They want their daughters to marry Jewish boys. They want their sons to marry Jewish girls, to keep this unity, this harmony. I'm reminded of one Gentile boy who fell deeply in love with a very lovely Jewish girl. He came to her father and he says, "I love your daughter deeply. I must marry her." He says, "I'm sorry, my boy. My daughter can only marry a Jewish boy." He says, "Listen, I'm willing to convert. I'm willing to become Jewish." He says, "Well, all right. You've got to go to the yeshiva for a few years. You've got to have a little operation. When you're ready, come back, and we'll talk about it. You can marry my daughter." 4 years later, this boy returns. He says, "All right. I've completed my studies at the yeshiva. I've had the operation. Now I'm ready. When can I marry your daughter?" He says, "I'm sorry. I changed my mind. You can't marry my daughter." He says, "What do you mean I can't marry your daughter? I've spent 4 years at the yeshiva. I've gone through all these things. I'm a Jewish boy now. What do you want me to do now?" He says, "Do what all the other Jewish boys do. Marry a shiksa." If you ever study Jewish humor, you will find that the Jews have many, many stories about marriage because they're very much concerned with the family. They're much concerned with marriage. This is a very important part of their lives. There are so many stories, for example, about marriage brokers. A shadchan. You know what a shadchan is? That's a Jewish Manpower Commission. I'll tell you a few shadchanim stories in a few moments, but first I want to tell you about one woman who said to a friend, "Congratulations, I hear your daughter just got married." She says, "Yes, thank God." She says, "But you don't seem too happy about it." She says, "No, she married such a bulvan." You know what a bulvan is? That's twice as ugly as a bull too. She's such a bulvan. Beautiful curly hair, big muscles, a big body, strong like an ox. At the wedding, he goes to hit the glass. He hits the glass so hard, she lost the baby. One woman said to her friend, Oh, congratulations, Mrs. Goldberg. I hear your daughter just got married. She says, yes, thank you very much. She says, but yes, but I hear she also gave birth in 5 months. The mother said, neber ga Jungink is, weiß nicht wie lang zu tragen. You see, oh yes, I did promise you to tell you a few shotgun stories, didn't I? Well, before I go on to explaining why the sense of humor has developed in the way it has, I want to tell you about a couple of shotgunim. You know, they get a commission when they introduce a man to a woman and the marriage results. And so they're very eager that the marriages take place. In the old country, most marriages took place that way. They'd go to a shotgun. Mostly the woman would go to the shotgun. The man never, because he was always the one they looked for. Finally, however, one man came to a shotgun. He says, all right, I'll get married. But I want a girl more than beauty, more than charm. I want a lively girl. Should be a lebedigger fish, a real lebedigger fish. The shotgun says, I've got for you a lebedigger fish. He introduced him to the girl. The fellow liked her, married her. 6 months later, she gave birth. He ran back to the shotgun. He says, listen, I asked you for a lebedigger fish, not a gefilte fish. Of course, I can't tell you too many shotgun stories that occur in Brooklyn, but this one did. One man came to a shotgun and he said, what do you got? I'm ready. What do you got? The shotgun said, have I got for you a lovely girl? I'm telling you. Charm, beauty, a wonderful cook. He says, yes, yes, yes. But does she have money? He says, to tell you the truth, money she hasn't got. He stuck his nose in the air and he said in good old Brooklynese, ich hab ihr in der. A few months later, the shotgun comes running back to me. He says, oh, have I got for you a girl now? 22 years old, certified. A wonderful disposition. A beautiful, beautiful girl. A marvelous cook. Sings like a canary. Not only that, but she has 100,000 pounds in cash. He says, oh, that's better. What's wrong with her? He says, nothing. Sie hat dir in der. You know, I think another 50 years at most, Yiddish will be dead. And it's too bad. Because the only way we learn Yiddish is through our parents. And each generation passed it on to the other. But those days are over. Yiddish is passing out of the stream of life. And it really is a sad thing. Because it is such an amusing language. For example, one woman walked into a grocery store. She said to the grocery man, give me please 10-cent burrikas. The grocery man said to her, what's the matter with you? You've been in this country 30 years. Why don't you say, give me 10 cents worth of beets? She says, wer gehagen mit dein Englisch zusammen? If you wear something around your neck, you're wearing a string of beets. As man geht sich bodden, you're going offen beets. When I go to see my daughter-in-law, she says, Od geht die alte, so give me 10-cent burrikas. Wer gehaget? You see, there's something else that's very interesting in the psychology of the Jewish people, and it's that the tribal leaders were very clever in that they incorporated into Jewish law, into Jewish custom, the things that they knew would result in healthier, happier living. They didn't say, don't eat ham, because at that time, of course, pigs were infected with trichinosis, and it would be a dangerous thing to eat ham. And so they made the entire pig forbidden to protect the health of the people. And we carry on the same custom today, out of custom, out of tradition. One man walked to a restaurant, a Jewish restaurant, and he says, do you serve ham here? He says, we had many customers asking for ham, we'd serve it. But for ein chazische customer, it doesn't pay. You know, I'm glad to see that you're such a good audience, because if you've heard the story before, I'd appreciate it if you'd laugh twice. Be like a Frenchman. You know, when you tell a Frenchman a story, he always laughs 3 times. First when you tell it to him, then when you explain it to him, and then when he understands it. Because the Frenchman loves to laugh. When you tell a joke to an Englishman, he laughs twice. First when you tell it to him, Then when you explain it to him. But understand that he never will. Because he's too stuffy. When you tell a joke to a German, he laughs once when you tell it to him. First of all, he won't let you explain it to him because he's too arrogant. And even if you did, he wouldn't laugh because he has no sense of humor. When you tell a joke to a Jew, before you're finished, he interrupts you. First of all, he's heard it before. Secondly, you're not telling it right. And thirdly, he ends up telling you the story the way it should be told.